Hi everyone, after a day of rain, I'm back outside in the sunshine and I'm going to continue to repot my outdoor bonsai trees. Before I start repotting a tree, I have to pick out a tree to repot. So let's have a bit of a garden tour. We'll look around at the trees and we'll pick out a tree to repot today. I'll start the tour on this bench with my Austrian pine. It was repotted fairly recently, so it's fine. Here's my Avatar Grove. It doesn't need repotting. It's in a big pot. Most of these trees were planted fairly recently. Here's the Larch Forest. Definitely doesn't need repotting. That was just repotted last year. Separated all the trees and repotted them. Here's the elm tree. This is the one I got from George from our club. It does need repotting. If we look down at the roots here, yeah, it's in a pretty small pot. The pot has a crack in it here and a chip, and definitely want to get those roots spread out and get the tree growing well. I have no idea if it survived winter. I think it did. I can see some of the buds. The buds are very small, but they are starting to swell just a little bit. Here's my apple tree, or what's left of it. This is the back of it. This is my one live vein growing up it, and my one leader that's still left on it. It's too bad. This tree had the potential to be my best tree, but nature had other thoughts. So here's my recent larch forest that I got. Yeah, I don't know if there's any life in any of these trees on it, but I guess we'll know this year. And here's my red oak that I started last year. It survived the winter nicely. The buds are swelling on it, but it's okay. Here's my juniper, my sort of redwood style juniper. That was repotted last year and it looks like it's gotten through the winter fine. Well, let's go over to the next bench. Here's a cedar or a thuya. It's doing fine. Now that could be repotted just to try and sort the roots out, but so we might be doing that this year. This is my willow from that cutting off the really old tree from the park. The one that was all gnarly and had all kinds of, yeah, it was just a really old tree. So that's doing really, really well. The leaves are starting to come out on the willows, which is really nice. Here's a couple of spruce trees that I've had for a long time. You can see them on a little bit of a hill here. They're quite ancient. They have a lot of lichen on them. They do need repotting, and quite badly. I can't even remember the last time I repotted them. They've just been kind of neglected. Here's my elephants with their cedar trees. They're fine. They don't need repotting this year. Here's my Norway maple. It's doing really well. The buds are swelling on it. It doesn't need repotting. I'm going to let it grow for another year in this training box. Here's my pine that's growing over top of a rock. That was just planted over the rock last year, so it'll be fine in this pot for this year. Someday I'll get it in a nice pot, but for now it's just in an aluminum baking pot or something like that. Here's my red maple, just a native red maple. And this tree's kind of special to me because it's being trained from a seedling, root pruned every year, and you can see the flare at the base. Even though it's just a small tree, you can see the flare developing at the base of the tree. You can also see these ceramic pots, how they crack in winter in Canada here. Yeah, they just don't last. I have a policy now. I'm not buying any more clay pots or ceramic pots and using them outside. I'm only using mica or 3D printed pots. I'm just sick and tired of buying pots and them cracking in the winter. So Yeah, there's another example of a waste of money. So let's go around here. Here's my little spruce that we did some work to last year. There's a lot of new buds swelling on it, so it definitely survived the winter. I didn't lose any branches, which is good. Yeah, it's looking pretty good actually. The sedum came through the winter fine. Definitely needs a bit of pruning though. And here's my sort of cascading cedar. If you can see the trunk down there. Yeah, it's greening up nicely. That definitely needs some work, and probably will need a new pot this year. Now here's another little spruce that I started from a seed. I've done, I think there's another video on it. So I definitely could put that with my two older spruces over there and make a clump of 3 of them. So that's a good possibility. I have a white pine here that I got in London when I was at the fair. They were giving them away. You can see it's part of that campaign about planting 1 million trees. Well, I planted mine, but not in nature. And this tree is kind of funny because it went on a roller coaster ride with me at the fair. I got the tree and I didn't want to leave it anywhere, so I brought it with me on the roller coaster. So that might be the only bonsai tree in the world that's ever been on a roller coaster. Now this pine, the Scots pine, it was in a video last year, and I noticed this year it has white scale on it. So I'm gonna have to go in and pick all that scale off and give it a spray. Yeah, so we'll fix that. Here's my white pine that I collected from one of the collection trips with the club. Doing well. It's got a long way to go. Here's my larch bonsai. So this one's not really styled too much like a larch. It's yeah, and again my pot has fallen apart. You can see it's all cracked and breaking, so yeah, another waste of money on that pot. Here's my tamarisk. Surprisingly, this pot didn't break over the winter. The tree was outside for the whole winter, and I think it survived the winter. It looks like the buds are swelling on it, so that's good. Here's my pine, my Scots pine that's in a aluminum pot that I made. It looks like it's doing okay. Yeah, it got quite a root pruning last year. It was bare rooted and repotted, and it struggled for a while, and I think I might have lost one branch here. There's still a bit of green needles on it, but I don't think that's going to survive. However, I do have a replacement branch back here that I can use instead. So yeah, it's, you know, always a trade-off. You severely root prune them and they struggle for a while, but once they start growing again, you'll always have those nice roots. You can always rearrange the branches and grow new branches, but yeah, for me a bonsai begins with the root base. So then we go over here. Here's another tree of George's that yeah, I want to get this repotted. I don't know how long it's been in this pot. I don't know what condition the roots are in. The foliage looked nice and healthy last year. There's a few spots on it that may have gotten a bit of winter kill. I don't know. Maybe they just haven't greened up yet, but the tree looks good. It survived the winter, no problems. And it was outdoors. Jumping over to this bench, here's my collected thuya from last year. Thuya occidentalis, or cedar we call them here. It's growing well. It had quite a bit of root pruning, but it needs more. I mean, there's a lot of roots to sort out, and there's a lot of growing to do on this tree. So yeah, it's going to be a long-term project, that one. This is my sort of gnarly looking trunk collected cedar down here. It's doing well. I have my mountain kind of style cedar here. I think I'm gonna try and make sort of a rattlesnake point type planting. I have a video on, you know, the cedars of Rattlesnake Point, and so I'll probably be transforming this eventually. These are my ginkgo trees. I think they survived the winter fine. It looks like the buds are swelling on them. These were sent to me by a viewer, so I'm very thankful. I have 3 of them. These are my these are my silver maples. These are silver maples in this pot. This will be their 3rd year of growing from seed, and they're doing quite well. It's a bit of a forest down here. So yeah, I definitely could separate those and root prune them, and I'm hoping I get time this year. There's another ginkgo seedling. Here's another red maple that I dug up from the front garden. It's doing well. Another ginkgo there. Here's another red maple. This one I repotted last year. Did I? I think it was last year. And the pot's breaking apart. I'll have to get that into a better training pot. So that's definitely high on the priority list. You can see the root, how it's growing out of the soil here. It really grew well. I wasn't sure if this tree would survive the severe root pruning I did the first time around, but it did. It survived, and it's growing really well. Here's the remains of my walnut tree, which didn't survive, but I do have a lot of maples planted around it, just starting new ones. Here's my Japanese maple that's been having a really hard time. You can see the mice chewed away one side of it. They removed all the buds off the branches last year, and oh man, it's had a tough time, this tree. But at the same time, it's developing a lot of character, so we'll keep working on it. I'm not giving up on it. These are maples from the biggest maple I've ever seen in town here, and yeah, I'll be doing a video on those in future. Here's an elm tree that was collected from the front garden. I don't even know what kind of elm it is, but it's there. Here's my willow, my big willow. I lost all the upper structure the one spring, so I'm trying a different strategy this year. You can see it's leafing out, so I'm going to let it leaf out, gain vigor, and then I'm going to repot later on in the year. And I'll be doing a video on the willows and my theory about roots on a willow. You can actually see some roots growing out of the moss here. Yeah, they get pretty vigorous in spring. Yeah, so I'm hoping to regrow the canopy on this tree, and I'm hoping it looks even better than it did before. The beauty of these willows is in the rough bark and the trunk, so this tree definitely has both. So it has potential. It just needs time and work. I'm over at the last few benches now. These are my catalpa seedlings that I planted last year. I have a lot of them. I have another pot of them here. And these are the southern catalpas, the ones that get the really nice flowers on them. So I have a lot of them. I left them outside for the winter this year. Last year I brought them inside. I had another group of seedlings and they all died. So this year I thought, well, I'll just leave them outside and see what survives. So I don't know yet. They haven't started to leaf out. Here's my bigger catalpa tree that I started, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. It's developing and getting some character to it. I think it survived. It looks like the buds did quite nicely on it. It looks like they're swelling, and yeah, no problems with that. Here's my black willow. Again, it's in a clay pot that's cracked. But the tree is surviving. It had a rough start in life. I did, fairly severe pruning to the cutting, and a lot of the branches died off on it, and but it's sort of, I think this year it'll grow well again. Up here is my 3 elms that I dug up from the front garden. They're all doing really well. They're starting to leaf out already. Look really good, really healthy. Last year, the leaves were really small on these elms, so I'm glad I didn't repot them last spring. I think the trees were, regrowing the roots and gaining vigor, so we'll see what the leaf size is like on them this year. And so I won't be repotting them this spring, but if the leaf size gets really large and the trees get really vigorous, then next spring I'll definitely repot them. Here's my lime, my small-leafed lime or linden tree, the ugly tree, and it's growing well. It's this is all new, this section of it, which I'm going to grow into the main leader, and I'm going to leave this as sort of a side branch. So again, it'll be sort of a long-term project, but yeah, the tree's getting some good character to it. I have some small cedars. I'm not sure if they're from cuttings or if they were dug up. I think they're cuttings. I found they grow really well from cuttings. If you're patient, it takes about a year to develop roots. I have a mountain ash here, a small mountain ash. I have a birch tree. I'm not sure what kind of birch it is. I think it's a silver birch, but I'm not sure. I have some Kentucky coffee trees, some wisteria. I have a larch here that looked like it was doing really, really well. And then I noticed down at the base of the trunk, it had kind of split, and so I'm not sure what that's all about, if it was just, the stresses of winter, or I'm hoping it doesn't have some kind of disease or something, I don't know. And I have my black locust tree that I started from a seed here. It hasn't shown any signs of life yet this year, but I think it's okay. So that was a bit of a tour of my outdoor bonsai trees. So now I've got to decide on what trees I'm going to be repotting today. So what needs it the most, or what's my highest priority? I've decided that I'm going to start with my elm tree, repotting it. And the reason is because it's going to be a different style of repotting that I normally do. This elm is probably extremely root bound, so I think the root ball will just be packed in that pot. And I think it's maybe one of the reasons the pot cracked is that the pressure of the roots inside. So I'm going to be repotting it today, and it might be a different procedure from what I normally do. I may not be able to comb all the roots out and get them in a nice radial pattern. I may have to put the tree in a larger pot and grow a new root system, and then remove all those lower roots that are growing down and are tangled. So I think it's going to be quite a different repotting procedure today here in the bonsai zone.